that way, trying to get support of the people. This happened in Luero Triangle and other areas. And when you look at the elections, we had the Chiboko squad led by Kakoza Mutale. That's in 2001 elections and 2006 elections. Then there is also an incident where Bobi was beaten up in Arua, and Museveni came out to defend the SFC, and he even made a statement that the SFC had dealt with him properly. So when you look at the environment back home, it's an abnormal environment. The regime, just like David said, uses torture as a tool to keep themselves in power. And it really works because we have come from a background where we have seen brutality. And whenever we remain passive, not to stand up for the people who go through these injustices, then we lose the ability to defend ourselves, even the people we love. So in this kind of environment, you know at the back of your mind that, like for instance, in the campaigns of 2021, every day we would begin our trail with a prayer and ask for God's mercy to be over us. And what we faced, we had never seen it until we decided to be political. Then all brutality was unleashed on us. And we have seen it face to face. Police vehicles and military vehicles running over our people, border riders. We've seen military guys shooting direct live ammunition into the crowds, seeing our fellow comrades dying. For instance, Yasin Kauma. So the kind of environment we are in is a bloody environment where brutality is becoming normal. And when it becomes normal, people start to fear to even go out on protests. Unlike in these developed countries, the Constitution will protect the people who go out to protest because it's a right. Yes, it is in our Constitution that we have the right to protest. But then when you go practically and you see what happens, that is non-existent, because once you protest, they are going to shoot tear gas at you, they are going to shoot live ammunition at you. Yes, sometimes we just have to be bold and say, no matter what, we cannot accept to be passive in the kind of environment, and we just go out there and still put up a resistance, despite the fact that at the moment it seems like Dictator Museveni has the monopoly over torture, over brutality, over the gun. But still, we are not going to be passive. So with that kind of attitude, we are able to keep moving. We keep moving regardless how many fall, we keep moving. So we are able to push on. And the best way of fighting an injustice is by exposing it. So we have learned that whenever we are out there, we have the camera on us. We are able to show whatever is happening. That way, people follow and really start connecting the events that we go through, because no one is safe as long as there is an injustice anywhere. It could be your brother, it could be your cousin. So whenever we expose this, we just need more people to follow these injustices and expose it further and, stand against all these injustices. So we are able to psych up our minds and say, no, we cannot win this unless we come out to fight and face all this. Yeah.
Thank you, Nubian. Really, it's quite inspiring to hear you, who's been through what you've been through, especially for the number of days that you were held in captivity. Still focusing on that experience, what kept that hope alive?
I remember when we were arrested in Kalangala. I had never been arrested, never in my life, and that was the first time. And in a span of 5 days, I think I was held in 5 different detention centers, 5 just in a span of 5 days. And I remember the first time we were held in Kalangala police station. I thought that this was, it was not going to be so long, and maybe later on in the evening they would just set us free. But little did I know that we were going to spend over 7 months in prison. And so when we went through all these injustices, of course, they were harsh. Even during the arrest, so many of our comrades were beaten up. There were pepper sprayed at. Many came out with broken limbs, broken arms, open wounds on their heads. And the fact that we knew that the world was watching kept us strong and hopeful. Because when, even after we were put in massacre, because there was demand for our release, the world was with us, and the Facebook people put out pictures claiming that some of us had been badly beaten and killed. So the regime, what they did because of the pressure on social media, they sent in their team with cameras and then took pictures of us. Those pictures are the ones they put out to bring down that demand, because people thought that we were badly, beaten. So knowing that we are not alone in this and we have a big family out there keeps us going.
Wow. I think it's useful to hear this from Comrade Nubian Lee, because I know many of you spent hours on Twitter, on social media, raising the plight of the arrested comrades from Kalangala. And that just shows what the impact you have by raising your voices. Honorable Derek Nyako, it seems like in Uganda, you are not too big to be arrested and tortured. Why does the government's, and this includes MPs, we're talking about MPs who have been in prison for how many months now? Sejirinya and Sewanyana? 8 months. Why does the regime seem to have this impunity when it comes to torturing and intimidating members of a government that is in waiting?
People power, our power, NUP, everywhere. I greet you all, comrades. It is too sad that we're facing the ugly face of the dictator at such a time when the world is modern. I must say, we do not have rule of law in Uganda. I must say it is too terrible, leave alone being members of parliament. But thousands and thousands of young people are in jail today because one person has to be in power for over 40 years. Alexander, just a few weeks ago, she was raped. It is torture. As a Minister of Security, we have had confidential stories of so many of our colleagues who have been sodomized. It has reached to that extent of torture. Just like so many other foot soldiers who have been cut, beaten, brutally arrested, Masereka, a few famous ones, Kakwenza, that you get to know. The world has saved them. The situation is so alarming. Torture is beyond. Just like Comrade Nubian, I had not been arrested until I decided to join the opposition. As a young Ugandan, I felt somebody had to be responsible. In 2 months after nomination, running for Member of Parliament, I was arrested 17 times. just in 2 months, with a clean record of not associating in any criminal record. And I must tell you, I was a contestant for member of parliament, not a councillor, not an LC chairperson, but their lives matter as well. I must tell you, even up to today, we have families that people have disappeared. Their fathers, their mothers are nowhere to be seen. Even in the police forces, we have police officers who were abducted and taken away just because they thought their heart was with the people. They could join the people. The situation is so alarming, where it got to break my heart totally, and I felt like maybe we need to take action. We have not done enough. It's an incident whereby I was taken to prison, and then when my mother came to see me, she had to be put inside as well. Well, we have faced torture and humiliation by the dictator, and that has happened to us. So many people tell me, Nyeko, your hand was broken. That did not hurt me as much as the people we love. And I must tell you, if we do not come up, if we do not do enough, the dictator is going to keep on hurting your brothers, your sisters, not only members of parliament. Today we have Alan and Segirinya inside. Our Honorable Segirinya last time came out, and the whole body had marks of brutality. Somebody has to do something about this. This is a member of parliament. That even on the floor of parliament, if you are to address issues that are so sensitive, you will not be given a minute. We need to rebuild our country. And we can only do it if we rise up, if we stand up, if we do everything in our position to make sure that we remove the dictator. Thousands and thousands of young men and women are determined. I bring you assurance from the young people we interact with, from Ugandans who are fed up, who can no longer take this nonsense. This torture won't stop because there are thousands and thousands of Ugandans that are saying, no, we must end this. The dictator will keep on torturing them, arresting them, brutality, and framing them. The question is, what are we going to do about it? We have done something about it. You have done something about it. We need to do more about it. We do not have to give up on the way. We need to fight on, because we are at a crucial moment whereby we need to do everything possible to end the road. We started the road. We are the hope of so many children who cannot go to school today. They are facing emotional torture because teachers cannot be paid, because taxpayers' money is being used by the dictator, probably throwing parties for his son. So we are looking at torture, and yet people are going to the hospitals and cannot find medicine. They are dying the same way. People who have decided to come out openly and fight the dictatorship are dying. Thousands and thousands of people are dying presently today. Torture is in several ways. Today we have domestic violence because there is torture. People cannot live to the standards of today, and because government has no solutions. We are looking at torture beyond. Torture is not only us and the foot soldiers that have been hurt. There is a reason why we are all into this struggle, to see that we rebuild the institutions of parliament, of the executive, of the judiciary, to see that the intention of democracy is practiced back home. You have been blessed that you are in the Netherlands and in the diaspora. You have seen the proper administration of government. You have seen how governments try to do everything to make sure their people benefit. I must tell you, in Uganda, we are paid by torture. I must thank the foot soldiers I must thank the ladies in the market, the vendors who stand firm and say we are going to fight the dictator, because they are the people power. Allow me as well to thank our dear president, because if it was not for him, so many young people would not be brave enough to face the dictator. We would not be brave enough. Personally, Nyeko, I was in NRM. I did not see any reason why I would join the opposition before, because we did not see and we do not have a brave leader who is going to take on this. It is something else to take on a dictator. But we are determined to make sure that we overthrow the dictator.
Thank you, Honorable Nyeko. I'll tag on to the point about being brave. Of course, the end game of torture is to instill fear. And that fear will be fear of physical torture, psychological torture, sexual torture. But it's clear that from both your experiences, that hasn't been successful, because you still stand, you still champion the cause, the call for a new Uganda. You still champion the cause for bringing down a dictatorial regime. Starting with you, how on a daily basis do you get yourself to overcome this fear? Because for some people, the fear is so great, they can't do anything about it. But you, despite the fact that you may have immunity, which we know is not existent being an MP, because our comrades are in prison, how are you able on a daily basis to overcome that fear of facing the dictator?
I must say, when you look at the people who are dying in the hospitals, when you look at the injustices, when you look at the corruption, when you get a chance to know deeper what's happening in government, your only option is to be brave enough to face those fears. When you look at the situation back home, when you look at how resources are being managed, when you happen to go to the cells and interact with these young men and women, when you happen to get a relative who dies, just know you'll be next. Our only option is to fight, to see that we overthrow this dictator.
Thank you, Honorable Nyako. Comrade Nubian Lee, I'd be interested in your thoughts on how you keep yourself above the fear that paralyzes so many activists back home on the ground. What is it that keeps you shouting, singing every day for a free Uganda?
Yes, the fact that I know there are people who've been in worse situations than us. For instance, the black people in the US were able to come out and, they were taken to the US as slaves. But the fact that they were able to stand up and fight for their rights, this, is really inspiring. The South Africans, in the face of apartheid, were able to overcome this. So when you know that this has happened in other places, and their resilience and persistence has always led them to, overcoming all these challenges, this keeps me going. This keeps me going because I know that if I don't do this, nobody's going to do this. But if I do this, I'll be able to inspire even more people to come out and do the same. That keeps me going.
And I think I couldn't agree with you more around inspiring. Your experience inspires a lot of people to take themselves and stand up, however, in whatever way you stand up. If there's anyone who has any specific questions you have or observations around the torture subject with our panelists, please don't hesitate to raise your hands, and then we'll have a microphone rotating around and you can use the opportunity to speak. We've got about 4 minutes. But I want to bring in the international perspective. I think we have 2 questions, just very, very briefly before we go to questions. The international perspective, and this is open to both of you. Why does it seem that the international community is willing to brush aside the allegations and indeed cases of torture, even carried out by the dictator's son, evidently in the case of Kakwenza. Why is it that they are willing to do this? Are Ugandan lives not worth the lives in the West? I'd just like to hear your thoughts, your reflections on that for a minute each, and then we'll move on to the floor for questions. Thank you.
This is one thing that I always keep telling my fellow Ugandans. If we don't do this, nobody's going to do it for us. For the international countries to pick interest in whatever is happening in Uganda, it has to begin with us. When we say enough is enough and we come out as a nation and say, no, we cannot take this anymore in big numbers, and then the regime starts killing people in big numbers, that's when, the international community will pick interest. But as long as we keep passive, then nothing is going to happen. It all begins back home.
I like that. That's a really powerful response. Honorable Derek.
Personally, I think the obligation is still to us. As we request the international community to stand with us, we must rise up. We must rise up and face our fears. No finances, no armed forces can suppress the people power. At the end of the day, the people power shall be in power.
People power.
Our power. So I strongly believe we are going to make it as Uganda. We are going to free ourselves. We need this help, either with the help or with no help. We are going to free Uganda.
Thank you so much, Honorable Derek Nyako. I think we had a couple of hands raised. Professor Milton, and then we'll take the other one, and then we will wrap up this session. Over to you, Professor Milton.
Thank you, comrades, for speaking about your very painful experience. We know it's very difficult, but thank you for sharing this, because this is the kind of knowledge that inspired people involved in the struggle to even become much more committed. So I just want to thank both of you for that. So, Comrade Honorable MP Nyako, you brought an issue which is not new to this perverted regime in terms of the sodomy rape. People who are not familiar with the documentary, A Brilliant Genocide, you can go to YouTube. There's a shorter version of that film. And that documentary by Ebony Butler, who is an Australian filmmaker. She interviewed men who were sodomized during the Museveni War, because that's whole conflict with Joseph Kony. That was a Museveni war. He was the one who was financing Kony in order to make him brutalize people in the northern part of the country and get US support while he was doing that. And it was surprising that Ebony was able to get some of those men to talk about how they were raped intentionally with soldiers who were infected with HIV, AIDS, to spread AIDS. So that was very valuable. But here's the problem. Culturally, it's very difficult for women to speak on being raped, culturally, traditionally, and it's painful. For men, it's almost impossible, right? Ebony found a few. So now, based on what you're hearing now, how pervasive is this practice, once again, being practiced by General Yoweri Museveni and the deputy editor, the deputy dictator, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba? Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Milton, for that question and the connection to the brilliant genocide. Can we take one more? Is that a question, observation? Question. Okay, let's take that and then we'll get those responded to. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you to both the speakers and to your chair as well. My name is Simba Maguchu. and I'm a human rights lawyer from Zimbabwe. My question is directed to Comrade Nubian. You rightly pointed out that one way of eradicating, well, we cannot completely eradicate it, but reducing torture is to expose it. So how far have you gone in exposing torture in Uganda? What international mechanisms have you used? Because I know that using mechanisms at home is a waste of time. They won't pursue the cases against the dictatorship. But how far have you gone in using international mechanisms to expose torture in Uganda? Thank you.
Thank you. Did you say your name was Simba?
Simba Rashe Maguchu, but everyone calls me Simba.
Simba, the lion. Okay, that's a really good question. Okay, I'll hand over to Honorable Derek to deal with Professor Milton's question. And Comrade Nubian Lee, if you have anything to add, feel free. And then we'll move on to your question. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Professor Milton, a lot of weird things happen when we tell you that drones are picking up people. 95% of the people picked up by the drones are either raped, beaten up, or sodomized. Even other weird things that we feel we should not openly say. But what are we left for? More than 80%. There are official cars that are supposed to come and pick or arrest somebody. The reason why they are using drones, it is because they want to drop you at the police already broken. So you're facing the trauma of just even being dropped at the police station. And lots of other sexual crimes that are happening by state operatives because they have guns, they do not have rule of law, they do not respect the constitution. So it is up to their mercy. They decide when to rape. It is only that they go ahead and threaten those that come up and speak. Few of the people have the courage to come out and say what happens to them. And for those that are confidential to us, that we do not want to mention names, of course we do at certain forums, but we keep their dignity as soon as they open up and tell us openly that they do not want to be out there. We must fight this vice. We must fight the dictator. And the more we talk about this, the more people get bold enough to openly talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Honorable Derek Nyeko. I think there's a question in there, and I'd like to pose this to NUP leadership and representation around what support the party has for people who undergo this physical, psychological, and sexual torture. But that's just a question. It'd be useful to understand what structures and mechanisms are in place. In the interest of time, Comrade Nubian Lee, do you mind answering Simba's question around how far you've gone exposing the torture of the dictatorship?
Yes, thank you, Simba, for that question. As a country, as people power, we have really tried to maximize internet. Whenever we have activities, we are always certain that the regime is going to come out and unleash brutality onto us. So what we always do is we go on Facebook Live, and by doing this, we are able to expose whatever brutality goes on. And as a National Unity Platform, we are also trying to document all these brutalities, and we are trying to put a case in ICC about these brutalities. So we are fighting it both in the international courts of law, and back home, we are exposing it even more. Because when we expose it, even the people who did not know what the regime was doing, once they get to see these crimes on humanity, then they have a change of mind, and they realize that all along they've been hoodwinked by the regime. It's a brutal regime. In that way, I'm sure one day we are going to have the capacity to have enough people come out and say, that's it, enough is enough, and we shall be able to overcome all this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Comrade Nubian Lee. Ladies and gentlemen, I know there are many questions, but in the interest of time, we have to move on. Please, this is an emotive topic. People undergoing through torture is not a pleasant experience to share. And I have a lot of respect for you being able to come and share with us your experiences. You do inspire us, and I'm sure a lot of the comrades will agree. Ladies and gentlemen, can we give Comrade Nubian Lee and Honorable Derek Nyeko a round of applause as we prepare for the next panel. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, David, for organizing this panel. We're now going to go to our last panel, because there's one thing that we really want to listen to, and that is our president. So we've asked him to be here at 5 for his keynote address. The last panel is going to be on how to use international institutions, how to become better at diplomacy. And for that, I would like to call forward, first of all, our real Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Muwada, please. Yes, you're the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Yes, so please come into this panel. Sorry? Yeah, International Affairs, yes, thank you. And then, Comrade, I'm trying to say Zakayo, but you're Makayo.
Makai.
Thank you. Please take a seat. And Joseph, just say your last name, otherwise I might be the spokesperson.
Senyonjo.
Thank you. So. Tony, you know how the microphone works? Thank you. This is not that good. So let me be here. So since we won the elections of January 14th, we became more active on the diplomatic front. And a lot of that diplomacy is done from the diaspora. And that's why it's so nice to have from the western side of the pool, we have Joseph from New York and Tony from the eastern side of the pool, and then obviously Honorable Muwada from the southern side of the pool. So I want to start with you, Tony, because you are recently, you received your PhD in Berlin. It was online, possibly even more viewers than we're having today. And I want to congratulate you for that. And you also advised the United Nations in Geneva. And you also advise the National Unity Platform a lot. I've been on the phone with you quite a bit. People obviously know me for doing all kind of actions, but then first I call Tony for some advice. So, Tony, I would like you to start explaining to us what we can do better with the National Unity Platform, so that next year, when we come back, maybe in your hometown, Berlin, that we can report we have moved forward. Please.
So thank you very much, and I greet you all. I know you're very tired, so just be attentive. We're going to keep it very brief. I thank Nico for organizing this, Nick and Susan, and I thank all of you for coming here this evening. So I'll get straight to the question. What can we do to energize our struggle at the international level? I would begin by saying our struggle through Bobi Wine
has been brought to the face of the international community. So that's very good. We've had international credibility. We've been all over the media houses for the last 3 or 4 years. And everyone knows there's a problem in our country. So that's not news. Everyone knows people are being killed, women are being raped. So it's not big news. People know elections were stolen, we had the U-vote up and so on. What is lacking, or why are we not moving forward from the trajectory? I think how we engage international institutions is very important. So we go for demonstrations. I've seen people at the UN in New York, I've seen people in Berlin at the Foreign Ministry, and I've seen people in other world capitals. That has been very good. But how do we move from engaging international institutions? I've seen people at the IMF and at the World Bank. How do we then get this information deep into the tables, and how do we do follow-up? And engaging international institutions is not only political lobby, but it's also institutional activity. So I will give one proposal, for example. When I look at the United Nations, the United Nations has 4 key events every year. The first event is happening every March. It's called Commission on Status of Women. So we had a women's panel here. The Commission on Status of Women speaks with non-government organizations, civil society organizations, but also governments. So how do we get women from the National Unity Platform to speak in New York every March, speak about the challenges, bring up issues of domestic violence, issues of rape, under NUP or under different umbrellas? The second event we have every year is the High-Level Political Forum. The High-Level Political Forum is at the UN, still in New York, is addressing the SDGs, and there are 17 SDGs. All these SDGs are interrelated to the challenges we are facing as National Unity Platform in the Ugandan context. So how do we try to translate our message or challenges to the UN under the pretext of the SDGs? The third event, which is very important every year and where civil society takes part, is the United Nations General Assembly. They engage governments, but there is also an opportunity for civil society to take part. And in many African governments, you discover that governments will come and speak and tell lies, but they're not countered by the civil society or by the opposition political parties, just because the parties are not there to counter them. The fourth and last event is the Human Rights Council. This is taking place every February, and I think every summer. Now it's ongoing in Geneva. So I've had people speaking about torture and rape and sodomizing of people and illegitimate arrests and so on. This information is very important, but we as NUP have not been able to translate this information from social media or from keeping it in the Ugandan context to bring it at the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva to the international community. So that is one of the basic ways we can transform this message. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Honorable Mwada, we have been having quite some interesting conversations, for example, about your meeting with the French ambassador. Remember, the French ambassador has a difficult French name, and he was meeting with Muhoozi and like meeting his friend and tweeting about it. And we in the diaspora, we were angry about it, and you were also angry, and you challenged him about it, and that is a great way of cooperating. So, Honorable Mwada, please, can you give the National Unity Platform some recommendations about foreign affairs and also how we can cooperate best? You in the headquarters and we in the diaspora with Tony and with Joseph. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to first, as a Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs, I want to first set the record straight that even the natural legal existence of the National Unity Platform, actually from the early days of the movement called People Power, up to the transformation into the National Unity Platform, that cuts across the structuring of all our chapters. International relations is part of a key ingredients in policy and leadership strategy in terms of NUP, people power, and equally in terms of our diaspora existence. We believe and we are aware that the world today is a global village where affairs of any segment of the world concerns all of us, be it outside Uganda or within Uganda. So on the onset, people power has a particular segment for international relations. The National Inter-Platform has a particular secretary for international relations. Even the leadership in Parliament, for example, has a shadow minister for foreign affairs, and our policies are deliberate. That's to set the record straight. Secondly, part of the reasons we are here, under the theme energizing the struggle, but as well meeting as National Inter-Platform in the diaspora, having a diaspora conference is part of the strategy in terms of our international existence. Why is it part and why is it very essential? Before we talk about other actors, being international organs and governments, it all starts with the people. If we talk about torture, justice, rule of law, human rights, among others, our specific preference in the first instance are the people of Uganda, be it in Uganda or anywhere in the world, including the diaspora. And that's why among our topical issues, earlier today we discussed aspects of slavery, for example, domestic workers, workers beyond borders. We start with the people and the interests of the people of Uganda. And by our own nature, we don't manufacture standards and views and aspirations of the people. We engage them, we reach out, we hear them, and we are here. It's part of our deliberate strategy in terms of our diplomacy and international relations. Two, part of the atrocities we are dealing with, both locally and abroad, start by exposure. We must expose them. When Comrade Nubian Lee was here, he mentioned how we have used a strong grip on social media, among others. Not because we don't want main media, but you know the restrictions and conditions under which they operate. Because part of international appreciation is the exposure of the tragedy, of the atrocities, of the dictatorship we have. And without exposure, many of these international actors are very adamant and reluctant to appreciate that actually this exists. Never, needless to say, that institutions like, for example, the International Criminal Court, their standard is, first of all, investigation as a standard. But as well, we ease the standard of awareness that this actually happened. And I want to applaud the Ugandan community in the diaspora. You have done us favors and wonders in terms of exposing what happens on ground in Uganda. The existence of you, our Ugandans in the diaspora, has been a blessing in disguise because you have been part of the basic pillar of the struggle. When the president had just arrived in the Netherlands here, one of his critical statements, he said that you people in the diaspora saved me. Please clap for yourself. One of the first key critical statements by President Chagwany in his welcome remarks as he arrived in the Netherlands, he said the people of the diaspora, you saved him when he was incarcerated in Arua, when he was detained, you raised up your voice. This is a signal that we cannot underestimate the role of Ugandan communities in the diaspora, as well the role of Ugandan communities back at home. That's the first step, exposure that this is what is happening in our country, and we are the people, and here we are the people. Uganda is not made up of trees by the people of Uganda. So our first step in international relations is exposure and creating awareness that this and this is happening in our country, because many of these international actors, many times they ask for evidence, many times they ask even for obvious evidence, and that's why you will find it surprising that some will say, we are not aware. So awareness is part of our deliberate strategy in terms of international engagement. Two, we have taken other steps, including boycott, even at domestic level. As we stand today, yesterday we are visiting the Netherlands Institute for Multi-Party Democracy. But part of the reason is, back home in Uganda, we boycotted membership of IPOD, because these are all partly international aspects of international relations and engagements in our domestic arena, especially the political arena. So part of our approach to international diplomacy is boycott where necessary. And that's why we are boycotting iPod. Because how dare do you say you are facilitating dialogue when our hands are tight and someone, a giant, a dictator somewhere is saying you must dialogue on my own terms? What kind of diplomacy, what kind of democracy would you be exporting to Uganda? And we are saying no. So even boycotting some of these internationally motivated facilities, including iPod, is part of our international strategy. We must be hard, and we are glad when we reached the Netherlands Institute for Multi-Party Democracy. The executive director was deliberately said, I'm aware of the position of the National Unity Platform. They boycotted iPod because part of the reasons is they demand the release of political prisoners unconditionally by the regime before you can talk of dialogue. So I'm trying to capture that point extensively to give weight to our equally relevant approach of boycott in terms of international diplomacy and our engagement at international fora. But as well, needless to say, we're also making use of all international forums and network, including courts. I think as we speak now, there are several petitions to the ICC, some by NUP and some by individual Ugandans. We are equally in support of all approaches that ensure that international institutions as established are seen to act as in terms of Uganda. And part of the pressure for them to act has been occasioned by you people in the diaspora. You know you have done it. You know how much you have pushed on. You know how much you have kept the fire burning in terms of realizing meaningful democracy in our country, meaningful respect for human rights and good governance, among others. And we cannot relent on these efforts. We are here to dialogue even more. Where should we add? What steps are you taking? We're also here to listen from you, to come, because the party and the approach we are having as NUP is not only formed in terms of research to opinion, but the views you have, the aspirations you stand for, the suggestions you stand for. I believe by the time we finish this conference and many others, we shall even have gathered more energies, more strategies, more approaches. We understand in the global setup, institutions like the UN, institutions like the African Union, institutions like the East African Community, the other institutions of governance and democracy, and even including other countries, such institutions like the European Union. We are here, and part of our approach was to file a petition. But this petition was crafted by you people in the diaspora. You presented it. I believe it is an inclusive approach. We are taking use of all possible and meaningful steps to ensure, one, we expose the dictator, we expose the atrocities, we demand for justice, we demand for fairness, and needless to say, we also demand for actions where possible. In terms of Uganda, we want electoral decision by people of Uganda, which has been denied to the people from the people of Uganda for generations now. And we are saying we must have change and meaningful change. So we are employing all these approaches, not for them to decide for us who must lead Uganda, but to come into realistic picture that people of Uganda have now the capacity to decide. Because in the first place, in the previous election, the winner of the presidential election has not been announced to date. Though he is coming here, our president, Chagwen Sentamuroban, but has not been announced. Yet we are very certain, if we are talking about rule of land democracy, an election is announced from declaration of results form. Now we have an election where results form are not considered, but someone announces the winner. We hear a foreign entity funding an electoral commission, independent by only the name, but not independent in terms of action and the results. So part of the process is exposure. Ladies and gentlemen, because of time, the little I can say is that our international approach is not only in terms of the leaders, but also in terms of the people, what you do and what we do. Added together, we shall move a long way. The struggle continues with all the challenges, with all the intimidation, with all the frustration. I've seen how we have saved even Ugandans in the diaspora by you and efforts by you people in the diaspora and those at home. It is a meaningful win-win approach. It is an inclusive approach. Your views matter. Our views matter. All what I can say, Aruta continua. The struggle continues. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Muwada. I like the energy with which you are speaking. And I would like to have my paper back, but because it contains my notes. Thank you. Hey, another paper. So where is that? Oh yeah, thank you. So I want to give some examples of how the diplomacy work. So as we know, 2 weeks ago, our president was in Senegal for a conference about organized by Democrats. And our president is a rock star, and there were many Western young people, and they lined up to meet our president. And the next day, the president asked me, "Hey, Nico, I met some guys from the Netherlands. Please talk to them and invite them to our conference." So I did, and they came to our conference or opening on Thursday night. Although it was raining cats and dogs, remember, Honorable Muwada? Today the weather is better, but they showed up. They talked to Honorable Muwada, and I explained to them what's going on in Uganda. They were flabbergasted, and they directly started saying, "Oh, I know Sophie in het Veld. She is MP from of European Parliament." It's someone that I have been sending emails to. I never get a reply, but we know introductions are very important. So these young Democrats helped me to get an introduction. So you see that the networking is important. It's our president that opened the door, but then after he opens the door, it's also important that there are others who follow up. And that is one of the roles that I have been taken in the National Unity Platform. I call myself EU ambassador. Another example I want to give that we are talking to the International Monetary Fund. Now, one of the reasons that we're talking to the International Monetary Fund is because we also have been demonstrating there, and they don't really like that. It makes them look bad, and they want to look like a noble organization. Joseph, I know that you've been involved in those conversations, and also I think Honorable Muwada, you've been involved in some of these conversations. Another where we're making progress is this year our president spoke to the Italian Parliament. He went to the Dutch Parliament. So more and more we're getting a little bit of contacts. Just in the UK things are difficult. That is not to blame to our UK chapter members because they are demonstrating a lot, but it's unfortunately that with the present UK government, it's really difficult to make progress there. Now, one thing that that also has to do with diplomacy is also how we. It's important that the important documents and videos, etc., that we keep pushing them to the public. I think that is something that we can improve on. So maybe some of you know that I wrote this book, Rigged.
Maybe Nick, I wanted to add in something small, just for the record, as the National Unity Platform and as a government in waiting. Equally, we are in constant engagement with all countries of the world through their diplomatic channels and all international institutions. And we are making our position clear, especially to do with democracy and governance. And that's why you have seen our president meeting a number of and being part of a number of international programs and platform. Our message is clear and deliberate, and also substantiating where and in some circumstances why we are abstaining from particular arrangements. For example, the iPod, among others, where we think the intended results cannot be achieved, even with the patronage of international actors, until they prove tangible steps on ground that can ensure fairness and in terms of good governance. So we are in meaningful and constant engagement with the countries of the world through their diplomatic channels, diplomatic missions, diplomats, including international entities. And that's why I mentioned earlier that even after the post-election challenges we had, the first part of the step was a petition to the UN Commission on Human Rights, among others. We have petitioned a number of international entities and agencies, and we are making a number of meaningful diplomacy, both at international level. We are certain, but also to remind you that in circumstances that we cannot appoint you ambassadors with titles, just to know you are the ambassadors of the people of Uganda, wherever you are, where we cannot reach, or where we can't be in reach as a constant measure. You are there, and we are proud you are doing it.
Thank you very much, Honorable. So, yeah, what I see is that the coordination is sometimes a bit lacking. So, for example, you're talking about the United Nations. We have someone working at the United Nations. I work together with a comrade here in the audience to analyze the United Nations review, that was totally outrageous. They were hardly talking about the subject of torture that we just discussed, but they did want us to abolish the death penalty, which is totally outrageous because the dictator doesn't even need a death penalty if he just shoots people on the streets. So, I'm going to be a bit critical here, but I didn't see on social media these United Nations countries being exposed. We need to be much more critical, and sorry to say, but I see the NRM being way more active on social media than NUP, because we are very fearful of tweeting something wrong or posting something wrong. I think we should reduce our fear and become more aggressive. So this book here has not been tweeted by you. Sorry to say, it has not been tweeted by the president. I think SG tweeted it once about this. And Carquenza, who is not a member of our party, he was the first to put this book in his hand and put it on his Twitter feed. And then the NRM started reacting. Look, they have a Dutch guy that wrote a book about the elections. Well, that must be false. He is Dutch, right? So why aren't we attacking the NRM with facts? Also about Kayunga, Honorable Nakwede. I'll be honest, the leadership has been silent about the Kayunga elections. Silent. So that is also a part of diplomacy, because the Kayunga elections are not over. I didn't hear everything what Honorable Nakwede was saying, but I know that is still in court. So why aren't we pushing social media to make the government of Uganda expose them that the judicial system is not working? So this is really something that I'm passionate about. You can notice by my voice. And so those, yeah, I hope that is something that we can interact more on. And I'm actually pretty sure that this is also something that Joseph agrees on, because Joseph, you've been also, just like me, devoting a lot of time to the National Unity Platform without payment, just like me. You told me yesterday night that you basically sacrificed a year to work for the struggle, and I want to thank you for that, Joseph. And those kind of things also need to be appreciated a lot. So I really, this conference, I have been appreciated a lot. This is really great. I mean, I really feel good about that. But Joseph, I think you should also be appreciated for all the work that you have been doing. So, and I think next time you also need to write a chapter in this book, right? So please, I want to have some applause for Joseph. Yeah? Thank you. Yeah. And Joseph, now I want to give you the floor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nico. If you don't mind, I will stand. Sorry?
And then I'm going to sit.
Welcome, people power, our power. Yes, it's a privilege to be here. Thank you, Dr. Nico and your beautiful wife, Susan, for organizing this awesome event. The deliberations have been great. So far, the demonstrations yesterday were amazing. Yeah, so let me not waste too much time, get into it, but thank you for the recognition. And you've been doing so much. We would not have gotten to the European Union and European diplomacy. I'm glad that you spoke about it because I'm going to talk about the American side. So thank you so much. The international diplomacy is very, very important. And diplomacy started right after the elections. We mobilized around the electoral fraud. Dr. Nico here just showed you a book, Rigged. He developed, and his team developed the U-Vote app, which was used during the elections. And a lot of rigging was captured. Results kind of didn't match what the regime reported. So we in the diaspora decided we're going to expose the rigging. So we started through tweeting, through writing letters. But before that, we had to rescue our president. Our president was under house arrest. So we mobilized. At that point, there was a team that was led by Madame Grace Chiboneka of Seattle. She's not here, but I want to recognize her because during that time, she was the coordinator of this effort. We had a couple of international Nigerian lawyers. And Jeremy, I think you were on one of those committees, and a whole bunch of other people. We reached out to the State Department. We reached out to the United Nations. These are Nigerian lawyers who help us reach some members within the UN system. We're activating the Red Cross. The U.S. ambassador, as a result, went and tried to visit His Excellency the President. And so the release of His Excellency the President was not by accident. He could have been under house arrest for a very long time, but because of the pressure, international diplomacy, reaching out, something was done. So that started back then. And ever since then, we've been exposing the rigging, the abductions, because the abductions have been ongoing since the elections. Thousands of our people, we've been exposing that. And as a result, some sanctions were put on Abelka and Hindiho, and some unspecified persons have travel restrictions because of the exposure. The diaspora is a very integral part of this effort. So the idea is that it's ordinary people like every one of us here. So we have the power, as Madame Mutabasere from Zimbabwe said, she took it on. You know, take it on. If the leaders are not doing it, do it. Do it. We have the power. That's why it is called people power. So we, in each individual capacity, we should do something. If there is a protest, please show up a protest or prepare a placard. Even if, you know, some people are afraid. Even if you need to put on a mask, you can say COVID. You know, if you want to need to disguise, at least show your presence makes a difference. You know, have the placard and protest. That sends a message. All right. So let me go into the since the beginning of this year, this Boston chapter has been in the lead of the international relations. Both of the gentlemen that the team that is leading this effort is actually part of the Boston chapter. So again, I want to recognize Madame Dorothy from Boston and the women. Again, thank you so much. The women are, in fact, when you go to most of the protests we go to are mostly women. And mostly women from Boston. So the women seem to be more masculine. I mean, they're more, let's see, they're more fearless than the men. They're actually leading a lot of, I mean, kind of showing up at more protests than the men. So we really have to cheer the women. Thank you so much. And Madame Dorothy's leadership has enabled the team. You know, she knows how to delegate. You know, she's, again, a woman. She knows how to to focus on what is important. And so Tony Kaziba and Ismail Serun Georgie have been doing most of this, leading a lot of these efforts on international relations. So this is, since the beginning of the year, Boston chapter in its wisdom registered, and this is very important. I was talking to my comrade Jeremy from Germany, and he was talking about the importance of being organized, of registering organizations so that you can then do things which would not ordinarily do. Robert Double style does not work in the diaspora. I mean, it works like in the police, like Mr. Nico did yesterday. Yeah, but when it comes to getting to policymakers, they want to see that you're a credible organization locally. So however way you do it, however way there are laws in their countries work, it's important to have organized chapters, register, and then you can do certain things. Mr. Jeremy was talking about how in Germany, for instance, the NRM is doing a lot. There are a lot of people, asylum seekers. Some of these asylum seekers are actually the ones organizing the NRM the NRM event. So how can you be an asylum seeker and be on the side of the government? So, but if you're an organized organization, Mr. Jeremy was saying, you can then expose these people. We should not be making it safe for these asylum seekers that are supporting the regime, which is they're supposedly fled from. So, but you cannot do it unless you are organized and you're an entity that is recognized. And so we are not going to make it safe for regime sympathizers, or rather, they cannot, claim to be asylum seekers and still be in bed with the regime. But organization is key. All right. So now let me, for meandering a little bit. Let me go into, since the beginning of this year, after the Boston chapter registered itself as NUPUSA.org, a non-profit that does a lot of mobilization work and human rights humanitarian causes. There's been a lot of progress because now people they're responding because there is an official email, NUPUSA.org. When I send an email, it's Joseph Senyonja at NUPUSA.org. So they are saying, whoa, this is a recognized organization. Before, we were not getting a lot of responses, but now we are getting a lot of responses. There have been a lot of meetings, and it's a bit of a list, so I'm gonna read it. So since the beginning of the year, there have been a meeting with the New York City Bar, the United Nations UN Human Rights, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, the IMF, 3 meetings, the Center for Justice and Accountability, the State Department. We've had a couple meetings with them, and one of the results of that was the visit by the lady who acting head of the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights and Labor. She went to Uganda, I think in March or April, and she met with the leaders of opposition, and she actually said that the regime has to account for the 2020 killings. That it was after, maybe 2 or 3 weeks after we met with that department. She went, met with leaders of opposition, and made this demand. So that to show you the power of engagement. We in the diaspora have the power. We have the access to help with the situation at home. We met with the several senators, Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts, officers. We don't really meet the senators, but you meet with their aides. We met with the Senate office of Senator Van Hollen of Maryland, the office of the mayor of Boston, the Human Rights Watch, Senator Elizabeth Warren, the office of the European MP Nicholas Ninas, who was instrumental in the European Union's resolution for Magnitsky sanctions that Mr. Robert Amsterdam talked about earlier today. The office of Jim McGovern, that's another senator, and very interestingly, a meeting with the office of Hillary Clinton is coming up. As everyone knows, Hillary Clinton was the former former Secretary of State of the United States, and also former Vice President. So,
Joseph?
Yes, I understand. I'm running out.
Yeah, no, this is a great list. So after Joseph finished with his list, I'm going to walk in the audience for some questions. So please prepare your your questions and please continue. Joseph.
So having said all that, we need a partnership with Uganda. I'm glad that the Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs, Mr. Mwadan Kunyinji, is here. One of the challenges we've had, we've actually reached out with some of the gentleman mentioned some of these committees in the UN. We actually reached out to them, And as someone said, they need evidence, they need collaboration. We reached out with our colleagues in Kampala, and it's been very difficult because the information is not forthcoming. So we need to have a partnership with Kampala to work, because we should not be, we're not competing. We are all for the same cause, so we need to work together. And so basically, yeah. And again, the final point, we have to stand up for ourselves. We have to okweberamu. It's not that because I'm in the US, it doesn't concern me. But what legacy are we going to leave for our children and our grandchildren when we say that our country was destroyed, our heritage our environment was degraded, and everything was basically decimated under our watch? What are we going to say? Even if you think it doesn't concern you, you're okay. We have to think beyond ourselves and do something, say something, involve yourself in protests, write letters, tweet, do whatever it takes to expose the regime and move the struggle forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Joseph already mentioned Tony Kasiba, who is doing a lot for the US diplomacy, and I should also mention Ismail. He had already bought a ticket to come here, but unfortunately, someone who is dear to him is very sick, and that's why he couldn't travel him. So I also want to appreciate Ismail very much.
I wanted to clear something as a quick response from his presentation. One, the National Unity Platform and People Power has its primary leadership in the Republic of Uganda under the leadership of President Kyagulanyi Ssentamu Robert. It always tries to maintain the same and the systematic message, both at home and also in the diaspora. Other factors constant. And it has a desk for international relations as the National Unity Platform. People Power has a desk for international relations to keep a systematic flow of information and action plan and points. I would urge all chapters to take use of those channels. Incidentally, for us under Parliament, as shadow ministry, we pick up interest areas from the party as they are. Is what we advocate for. But original discussion is from the party hierarchy. A party has the national executive and party structures and policy organs, which we are trying to promote that we process our key interest in terms of Uganda from the party and its headquarters, specifically in Kamocha, where it is, among others. We have enabling channels where there is any weakness in access. I believe the leadership is also here. They can facilitate more and quick response. But I would say on record, these provisions are there and this support is there in terms of access. Secondly, because the USA chapter has partially presented, I want also to put on record that there is significant diplomacy and diplomatic achievements by all the chapters. I've seen action points in diplomacy from as close as Tanzania, Kenya, South Africa, or Africa in general. I've seen the Asian community, from the Asian continent, the Middle East, from China to Europe and America. Please? So all these chapters have been actually functional and active. My chance, they have not got a chance to present here. The UK chapter, they have also been actually functional with a lot of action points on diplomacy, international relations, and a giant contribution to the liberation struggle. I just wanted to make that one clear on record in terms of the presentation, to recognize all your fundamental contribution and achievements, much as we had a case study from the USA. I thank you.
Thank you, Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs, for that contribution. There is something which is important that I forgot. I think you appeared on Uganda's Bleeding once, and you asked about engagement with the foreign missions in Uganda. You said you engaged. I'm glad maybe something changed, because at that time, you said that we don't engage because they're present in Uganda, so they see what is happening, so we don't need to tell them. So we, being in a diaspora, that is not a satisfactory answer, unfortunately, because you see, even in the market, when you go to market, you have sellers of tomatoes, and you have so many market women selling tomatoes, right? And you have a lot of customers, and unless you speak up for your tomatoes, you know, people can pass you by because there's so many buyers. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So basically, there's so many buyers, and there's, you know, like a lot of. So basically, so it is in foreign policy. There are so many competing interests. These countries are dealing with their own interests. That the international community is dealing with so many crises in Ethiopia, in Somalia, in Eritrea, in whatever. You have to be consistent. You have to speak up for yourself. Yes, they see it. Yes, it's true. They're there, they see it, but you have to speak up. If you don't speak up, they say, well, yeah, they see it, but you have to, champion it. Just like when you go in a campaign, these candidates keep on repeating the same message. You know, people have heard the message before, but they keep on repeating it over and over again. You have to, you kind of get to your conscience that you guys are talking about human rights, respect for human rights and democracy. This is happening right under your nose, and you're not saying, something. I know that maybe the fears or whatever, but it's us, especially the shadow ministry. I think a lot more needs to be done, and I think even Honorable Derek Nyeko said we are not doing enough. And I heard you trying to almost sound like yes, it's important that all the chapters, but are doing